I went to Cornell, upstate New York, and interestingly enough, I was not in the hotel school. I typically get the, oh, you're a restaurateur, so you must have been in the hotel, school there. But I had stumbled on the restaurant industry a couple years outside of college, and I saw it as kind of like a logical pathway to entrepreneurship. And candidly, I knew nothing about the industry. I never really worked in the restaurant field, but just, I was always driven by a little bit of that entrepreneurial spirit. And ended up thankfully working with Hillstone Restaurant Group, or Houston's, which even to this day, I started with them over 20 years ago, but to this day have still garnered one of the highest reputations of management training, and kind of cut my teeth with them and fell in love with the hospitality industry with Hillstone, and worked with them for several years. I then came to New York City and opened up my own restaurant. So I had a restaurant in the West Village for a couple of years. I'm a Maryland guy, so I started this kind of Maryland style seafood shack, blue crabs and peel and eat shrimp and things like that, but with a bit of a New York sensibility. And then had that for a couple of years, which was amazing. And then I briefly joined for about 2.5, 3 years, was with the Nomad team. So Will Gradara and Daniel Hume, who had just kind of parlayed their massive success with 11 Madison Park into the Nomad launch, and was part of that operation, which was phenomenal. So I think in hindsight, I've had the good fortune of being able to work with some of the most incredible companies and hospitalitarians in the world. So as I was saying, so I made the shift. I was primarily in full service with some great companies, but I became fascinated with fast casual, and decided to kind of explore what an opportunity might look like to leverage my full service experience in growing scalable concepts. And that's when I met John and Andy, the principals at Aurify Brands, to which I'm still associated with. I kind of came on as a partner 8 years ago, and we spent many, many years just building brands, fast casual concepts like Melt Shop, Little Beat Table, Fields Good Chicken. And it's an amazing organization, really fueled and powered by entrepreneurial spirit and innovation and culinary, ideation, empowerment. So we've amassed, I think, a really respectful, kind of portfolio of brands that are all, for the most part, created in-house. And it's been phenomenal. So I kind of wore almost every hat you can think of, over the past 8 years with Aurify. And Sesame really is it's a sister brand, right? It was born out of this business and this company. So, it has a lot of those same, values and so the same passion for hospitality and connecting with our guests. We're just now doing it in a very different and unique way, which is in digital tech and trying to solve some major problems.
Right. And I was just about to get into Sesame. So could you tell me a bit about the launch of Sesame, why you're passionate about it, and kind of a brief elevator pitch as to what it is?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, look, when COVID hit, we were all just kind of picking up the pieces of our portfolio, being an owner operator with a huge portfolio based in New York City, which got hit so hard in COVID. We spent the first couple of months, just trying to figure out a path forward. I mean, it was brutal, and it's, we're still kind of, suffering from the fallout of that. But I became, kind of immediately engaged and interested, maybe obsessed is the right word, with kind of thinking about some of the fundamental problems that exist in our industry. And, I very quickly landed on off-premise and the challenges that restaurant operators, specifically independent mom and pop restaurant operators, have had even pre-COVID. But, in a post-COVID world, where your off-premise sales, were going from, let's say, 10% up to like 50 or 60%. I saw that as like a major problem for the, again, the independent restaurateur. And the reason why it's a problem is because, the off-premise part of our industry has been completely monopolized by big tech, in Silicon Valley, in the form of, 3 main aggregators. I use the term aggregators to refer to DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats. And, the restaurant business is hard in and of itself, even when times are good. And we're just focusing on in-house business. It's very operationally intensive, slim margins. It's just very difficult to make it work on a good day. But when you have, Silicon Valley and big tech coming in and really making it hard for us to compete in a world where consumers are now not reliant on going into your restaurants to dine, like the convenience economy has taken us by storm. And, Sesame was kind of the answer to, the question, like, what if restaurateurs, who live and breathe this business, who are passionate about this, who like truly want to help create a better industry, not just for ourselves because we're engaged in it, but for our colleagues and our cohorts that we have mad respect for. What if we devised a system that was just more sustainable, that was more fair, more equitable for the merchants themselves? And we spent a lot of time diving in through those early months of COVID, trying to think about a different business model. And we're really excited with what we've kind of come up with, which essentially is kind of to put it simply, we're kind of just taking the existing playbook that those aggregators use, we're throwing it out the window and trying to come up with a business model. And essentially it's predicated on zero commissions and open data. Very similar to what Resi did with Open Table, like the whole notion that restaurants need to pay, percentage-based commissions just to generate an order for off-premise, we think is antiquated and it doesn't make sense. And instead of that, what we do is we charge a flat fixed rate SaaS fee, which is exactly what Resi did when they combated Open Table. So it essentially creates a level playing field for restaurants. They have to pay a fixed nominal amount to sell their products on a platform, and it incentivizes them to sell their products in a way that's more sustainable for their long-term profitability. And at the same time, not only are we trying to help the economics of the restaurateur, by being a merchant first kind of platform, we're also trying to really tackle, like giving back to the community and doing good with the prevalence of delivery and consumers kind of expecting their favorite restaurants, to be delivered at home. Like, why not give back to our local communities and neighborhoods? And by that, we're doing partnerships with people like City Harvest, where by using by using Sesame, you can essentially, give back to your community. Every order on Sesame feeds a hungry New Yorker in need through this partnership with City Harvest. So these are all just the ways that we're trying to rethink the current aggregator model and make it restaurant first and community second.
Yeah. And now is Sesame kind of being tested out or utilized with the Aurify brands?
Yeah, so basically we spent about a year kind of developing and doing some validation on the business model and raising some capital. We just kind of completed our pre-seed round. And about a month and a half ago, we launched a beta here in New York City. It's a slightly limited geography, so we're live from 34th Street, basically to Houston Street. And within that area, we've got about 30 to 40 restaurants that are kind of live on the platform, with another 40 or 50 kind of coming or in the process of onboarding. Some of those restaurants, of course, are our brands, but not all of them. And look, this is we have an audacious goal. It's kind of we refer to it as a Herculean task, just in that the total addressable market of off-premise is just so big, and it's only getting bigger, and it's dominated by some pretty massive tech companies, some of the biggest in the world. And our approach is to provide value to both consumers and restaurants, but it's also very complex and technical. So our approach to launch is starting with our backyard, which is New York City, starting with amazing, highly curated, killer operating brands, people that we know, and really building kind of a marketplace, really from the ground up. Everything we did is proprietary. Our tech stack is proprietary because we felt it was that important to have like a fully proprietary system that would offer consumers like the high level of convenience and a high level digital touch point that is required to compete against those aggregators. And we're gonna do it in a very prudent way. And our goal over the coming months is to work on increasing the supply of restaurants, and then start to enhance kind of the geographic coverage of New York, Manhattan, and the New York Metro.
Mhm. Well, you're really good at this because you have pretty much answered every single one of my remaining questions just now. But
Yeah, this isn't my first rodeo talking about sesame. I think.
I will say that the question that we are asking every single one of our power listers, and that you pretty much already answered, but if you want to like kind of like put it in a kind of Reader's Digest version even. So we're asking everybody, what is your big idea for the restaurant industry? Like, for example, what's the unique thing you're excited about and working toward? Again, you pretty much just answered that, but just kind of like, if you could summarize.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, oh my, I could probably, it's hard to summarize because I could talk about this specific topic probably for hours.
Not for hours.
Look,
I have an
I
interview,
think,
so not for hours, but
yeah, I know. My challenge is like, once I get going on something I'm passionate about, like hard to stop. But, look, I think what's the convenience economy and off premise, is not going anywhere, like, I think there's been a lot of talk, post COVID, when there was just a massive acceleration of off premise, whether it would slow down, whether it would stop, whether it would go back to where it was. And, my whole take is that, this isn't going anywhere. We live in a world now with, you want anything from drugs to alcohol to food from your favorite restaurants in 15 minutes, so that is going to continue to happen. I think what I'm most intrigued with is how our industry as a whole figures out the most optimal solution for executing that. And to elaborate just a little bit more, I think one of our more provocative, hypotheses at Sesame is that, the industry kind of responded to the proliferation of off-premise in a very specific way. And by this, I mean restaurants all kind of stood up their own destination channels. Like we have them all at our brand, meltshop.com, Le Pain Quotidien. We all have apps, like we all kind of ask our consumers to come to our proprietary channel to order food from us. And I think what we found over the years is that, consumers have destination fatigue, and not all brands are going to be successful at convincing consumers to go native and to go to these destination channels. And the reality is, well, the proof is in the pudding, right? Because the aggregators with their marketplace search and discovery products have taken a tremendous amount of market share. So what I'm interested in seeing over the coming months and years is, how restaurant operators adapt with that reality, and kind of the potential change and I guess expectation that merchants will begin to have on how to best compete with those aggregators. And then the reason why it's a little bit of it's a bit of a self-serving kind of interest, just because we built Sesame as a marketplace with search and discovery directly to compete with these aggregators for a reason, because our hypothesis is that the consumer wants that, and the consumer doesn't, it's kind of grown somewhat tired of the kind of the destination approach to ordering food. It's analogous to Amazon. If I asked you, Joanna, to don't go to Amazon to buy something, instead buy your shoes from here and buy your clothes from there. And like it's almost like, from a consumer standpoint, it's crazy. Like consumers expect to see everything in one place. So I guess that's a long-winded answer just to say, I think I'm very interested to see how the industry evolves in the face of this just growing off-premise and economy, and this convenience economy. And there's going to be some real winners and losers, and we feel super confident with Sesame that if we put restaurants first, if we create sustainability and economic fairness first, that all else will follow.